To save my mother, I became Tristan's fiancée. I always thought that was how my life would be, until the surgeon who was supposed to operate on my mother was replaced to operate on Tristan's first love. After my mother passed away, I sent Tristan the miscarriage report. When we met again, Tristan's eyes were red. "Grace, I was wrong, come back to me." But he didn't know my wedding was only 24 hours away. 1. The food on the table was cold, and Tristan, my nominal fiancé, hadn't returned. I dialed the number I knew all too well. The phone was answered by a woman's soft voice. "Who is this?" "Tristan is in the shower. I'll have him contact you when he's finished." I hurriedly hung up the phone, looking at the half-melted ice cream cake on the table. My thoughts went back 2 years. 2 years ago, I became Tristan's golden cage because of my mother's illness. A year later, my mother's condition stabilized. I broke up with Tristan. Tristan agreed readily at the time, but I didn't expect my mother to fall ill again half a year later. I was desperate and could only turn to Tristan. "Grace, you finally remembered me." The voice on the other end of the phone was lazy, as if still a little sleepy. "My mom had a heart attack, and I need a lot of money. As long as you're willing to pay for my mom's medical treatment, I'll agree to any terms." Grace, I remember when you left, you swore that you would be independent and no longer rely on me.
Why now?
Tristan's voice was full of undisguised sarcasm.
Then.
"What do you want me to do to help me?" I closed my eyes, suppressing my anger and unwillingness, and asked in a low voice, 10 o'clock tonight, come to my house." Tristan's voice was low and deep, full of meaning. My heart tightened, and I hesitated. I gritted my teeth and agreed. Isn't it just selling my body? It wasn't the first time. That night, I arrived at Tristan's door on time. The door was ajar, as if it had been waiting for me. Tristan was sitting on the sofa in his pajamas, twirling a glass of red wine. "You're quite punctual. Tell me, what are the conditions, and you can agree to save my mother?" "Please me." This was a little flirtation we often had when we were together with Tristan before. I learned a lot of tricks to please Tristan back then. I took the wine glass and took a sip of red wine without swallowing. Then I straddled Tristan's lap and kissed him, slowly passing the red wine in my mouth to him. Suddenly, I felt my mouth being emptied, and I felt a strange sensation in my body because of Tristan's kiss. Just as I was intoxicated, Tristan's lips suddenly left mine and mocked. "We haven't seen each other for so long. I didn't expect your kissing skills to be so rusty. Why haven't you found a man to release yourself in the past year? Aren't you suffocated?" My face turned red. Tristan was as shameless as ever. "Can you save my mother now?" I begged. "Grace, you're really shameless. You'll do anything for your mother. What if someone else was sitting here today and made the same request? Would you do the same?" After hearing Tristan's words, I hesitated. After breaking up, I didn't look for anyone else. I gave my first time to Tristan too. I worked countless part-time jobs every day just to give my mother a good life. Why don't you answer? "Yes, I'm shameless. I'll do anything for my mother. Don't you just want me to feel bad about myself? But what can I do? My mother is the only relative I have in this world." After listening to my words, Tristan looked at me for a while. After a long time, he suddenly smiled. "Grace, why don't we make a deal?" "Deal?" I was stunned. Didn't Tristan come here to humiliate me? But to make a deal with me. But besides my body, what else can I trade with Tristan? The next moment, Tristan's words made me feel cold all over.
2.
I can continue to pay for your mother's medical treatment, and I can even find the best doctors and the best medicine. Guarantee that she can live longer, and my condition is that you become my fiancé. When your mother dies, we'll get divorced. Tristan said these words calmly, as if he were talking about the most ordinary thing. I stared at Tristan with wide eyes, doubting if I heard wrong. I pursed my lips and said nothing. I don't know why Tristan would make such a request. Tristan. Any woman would agree to his request as long as he wanted to. Between Tristan and me, there was never any emotional foundation besides the money transaction. Even when I was one of his kept women, Tristan would only come to me when he had a need. I never thought about marrying Tristan. Tristan probably never thought about marrying me either.
So what does he mean now?
Want to test me? Tristan seemed to see my confusion and sneered. Don't get me wrong, I'm not interested in you. It's just that my old man insists that I get married, so I can only find someone casually. But don't worry, after we get married, I won't interfere with your private life, and you don't interfere with mine either. The time limit is until your mother dies. I bit my lip tightly, my hands clenched into fists until my palms were sore before I burst out cursing. What? You don't want to? You don't want to? Then you can leave now. Tristan snorted and turned to leave. Can I think about it before I answer you? I said anxiously. Grace, you can take your time. I'm not in a hurry. But if you take too long to think about it, I can't guarantee that I won't change my mind. My heart skipped a beat when I heard that. I knew Tristan was serious, and I can't lose this chance. For my mother's illness, I need this money and the medical resources of Tristan's company. I gritted my teeth. Okay, I agree. Tristan stopped and turned to look at me with a strange smile on his face. Since we're a family, you might as well move in tomorrow, so it will be easier for me to take care of you. Okay. I hesitated for a moment and agreed. The next day, Tristan arranged for my mother to be admitted to the cardiac surgery department of Tristan's company hospital. He arranged for the best doctors and nurses. He also arranged for the top chief physician of Tristan's company hospital to perform the operation on my mother. However, my mother's physical condition was too poor, and her body was not suitable for surgery yet. She can only have surgery when the indicators are qualified. And as promised, I officially became Tristan's fiancée. This news attracted a lot of attention. After all, Tristan's identity was there. He was the heir to the Tristan Group and a famous rich second generation in J City. And me, just an ordinary person with a lot of debt. Our identities were like heaven and earth. Everyone thought I was blessed to be Tristan's fiancée. Only I know how I became Tristan's fiancée. I accompanied Tristan to various banquets and attended various events. Tristan's parents asked me to meet them, and I was prepared for them to give me a large sum of money and let me leave Tristan. But unexpectedly, Tristan's parents didn't give me money to leave. Instead, they told me to take good care of Tristan, care about his daily life, and be considerate of his likes and dislikes. I nodded obediently, but felt a little disappointed in my heart. Tristan was just as he promised. He was very good to me, and he would take me wherever he went. He would also buy me expensive jewelry and dresses, and take me to eat the most luxurious meals. Gradually, I got used to this kind of life. I even looked forward to our future. Perhaps we could even have a love child. This kind of life continued for another half a year. Until Harper came back, everything changed. 3. Harper has heart disease. Harper is Tristan's first love. A few years ago, she went abroad to study, while Tristan stayed in the country. I could feel that Tristan never forgot about Harper. Sometimes, when Tristan and I were intimate, he would call out Harper's name. After Harper got heart disease, Tristan was even kinder to her. He started taking Harper to the hospital for checkups and taking her to see the best doctors. He even held a grand charity gala for Harper to raise funds for heart disease treatment. And at that gala, I saw Harper. Harper was thinner than before, pale, and looked like she could be blown away by a gust of wind. She was wearing a pure white evening gown, elegant and noble, just like a princess. And I, standing in the corner, looking at her, felt a mixture of emotions. I don't know why Harper suddenly got heart disease. I can't figure out why my life is so similar to Harper's. She stood beside Tristan, as fragile as a willow in the wind, like a fragile porcelain doll. And Tristan protected her, afraid that she would be hurt. Looking at their backs, I felt a strange feeling. Although I already knew that Tristan and I were together just to escape his parents' arranged marriage. But seeing him with Harper, I still felt uncomfortable. The alarm interrupted my thoughts. I looked out the window and realized it was already dawn. Tristan hadn't come back or contacted me all night. I went to the hospital. That day I received a call from the hospital. My mother's indicators had met the standard, and she could have surgery. I was very relieved to hear that. This was the best news in half a year. I thought at that time my mother was finally saved. On the day of the surgery, I arrived at the hospital early. I talked to my mother a lot, and I said that I would take her to travel everywhere after she recovered. I sent my mother to the door of the operating room. The operating room lights came on. Half an hour later, I saw a group of people running past me hurriedly. What happened? I grabbed someone and asked. I heard that the director's dog had a heart attack, and the director went to rescue it. The dog is the only memory of the director's deceased wife. So, will the operation continue? Yes, but the surgeon has been temporarily replaced. After saying that, the person ran away in a hurry. How could this be? I was stunned and couldn't react for a while. My mother's illness couldn't be delayed. This surgery was crucial. How could something go wrong at this moment? Is the owner's dog more important than my mother's illness? I walked back and forth anxiously outside and suddenly thought of something and rushed into the director's office. The office was empty, and I saw the surgery schedule on the desk. Harper? I stared at the name on the schedule and widened my eyes in disbelief. It turned out that the director didn't go to operate on the dog, but to operate on Harper.
Why?
Why is that? I couldn't believe it was true. Harper only had heart disease, and her surgery didn't need the director to do it himself. Why did he take away my mother's chance of survival? I had no choice but to pray that my mother's surgery would be a miracle. Unfortunately, heaven did not favor me. I waited outside until the afternoon, and the lights in the operating room finally turned on. I wanted to rush in immediately, but I heard a voice coming from inside. It's a pity. If this operation had been done by the director, the patient would definitely have survived. 4. The surgery was originally successful, but who knew the patient would suddenly bleed heavily? It's such a pity such a good life just ended like that. There's nothing we can do. Who told you the director had a more important patient? I don't know how to tell the patient's family. A good person just died. I heard that the one who replaced the director was the young master of the Tristan family group. My body slid down from the door. At that moment, the door of the operating room opened. Doctor, how is my mother? I asked with a glimmer of hope. The family members, please be prepared. We have done our best. Are you saying the surgery failed? My mother's gone? I couldn't help but shout. Patient, please calm down. We don't want this to happen either, but there are many uncontrollable things during surgery. With a thud, I knelt on the ground and begged. Doctor, please tell me, if the director had operated on my mother, would my mother not have died? If the director had performed the surgery, the success rate of the surgery would have been higher. I don't know how I got back to the ward. I just felt like the whole world had collapsed. I threw myself on the bed and wept uncontrollably. Mom, I'm sorry. If it weren't for me, you wouldn't have died. It's all my fault. I cried my heart out. My heart was broken. I don't know how long it took, but I was awakened by the sound of footsteps. Don't cry. Tristan walked over to me and said softly, Tristan, do you know my mother is dead? I looked up at Tristan with teary eyes, my voice hoarse. I know. Tristan nodded, his expression calm. Tristan, you killed someone, I'm going to make you pay. Tristan frowned. Grace, calm down and listen to me. I interrupted him. I don't want to hear your nonsense. I just know you killed my mother. I heard it with my own ears. You replaced the surgeon who was going to operate on my mother with Harper. If it weren't for you, my mother would never have died. Grace, Harper was very serious, and I was in a hurry at that time. Tristan, Harper's life is a life, and my mother's life is not a life? Grace, Tristan, I will make you and Harper pay. I slapped Tristan hard and ran out of the ward. I went directly to the morgue, looking at my mother lying quietly on the bed with a peaceful expression. My heart ached. I couldn't help but reach out and touch my mother's face. Mom, wake up, don't leave me. You promised me you would be fine. You promised me you would stay with me forever. My tears kept flowing, and my heart was about to break. I didn't expect that. No matter how hard I tried, No matter how much I sacrificed my dignity and happiness, in the end, I still couldn't save my mother. I hate Tristan. I hate his ruthlessness. I hate Harper. She stole the chance for my mother to live. I hate myself even more. I am incompetent. I can't save my mother. I stayed in the morgue all night. Tristan, we're over. I will never forgive you. I didn't go home, but went to the police station. I told them everything. I told the police that Tristan disregarded other people's lives in order to save his first love, causing my mother's surgery to fail and die. But because there was no concrete evidence, the police station did not open an investigation. I turned on the recording with my phone and went to the ward to find Harper, only to see her looking rosy. Not at all like someone who had just had surgery. I instantly realized that I had been deceived. Harper, you don't have heart disease at all?
5.
I said angrily. Of course, why would I get that kind of disease? Only someone like your mother would get heart disease. Then why did you lie to Tristan and say you had heart disease? When I came back this time, I realized that the one who loved me most was Tristan, so of course I wanted to get Tristan back. So, you pretended to have heart disease?
Yes.
That way, Tristan would care about me and come back to me. You don't know how anxious he was when he heard that I had heart disease. From that moment on, I told myself that he was the one for me. Harper, you're shameless. Does Tristan know about this? If he finds out the truth later, can you guarantee that he won't hate you? As long as Tristan can stay by my side, who cares if he hates me? After my mother passed away, I stayed at home for 2 days. On the 3rd day after my mother's death, I found out I was pregnant. This child was mine and Tristan's. Originally, I planned to give birth to the child. After all, it was the only thing I could connect with Tristan. But now, looking at my haggard self in the mirror, I hesitated. My mother had just passed away. If I gave birth to this child, my mother would definitely blame me. And besides, Tristan treated me like that. Why should I give birth to his child? After much thought, I decided to abort the child. Although the surgery was simple, it was also very painful. Coming out of the operating room, I lay on the hospital bed, and tears blurred my vision as I looked at the miscarriage report in my hand. My child had not come into this world, had left. I folded the report and put it in my bag. After leaving the hospital, I found a courier and sent the report and the U-disc with Harper's recording to Tristan. Grace, what do you mean by this? A few days later, I received a call from Tristan. What do you mean? I asked coldly. Are you trying to threaten me by sending me that thing? Tristan questioned. Tristan, you think too much. I don't have that much free time to threaten you. I chuckled. Then what do you mean? Tristan asked. It doesn't mean anything. I just want you to see clearly what kind of person you have by your side. I said indifferently. Grace, you can't be doing this. Harper wouldn't do this. Tristan was a little exasperated. I'm lying to you. The person who had the surgery would have a wound on the heart position. You can see if Harper has a wound on her chest to know if I'm lying to you. Tristan, you're so pathetic. You have 2 women around you. One is for your money, and the other is also for your money. If you were poor today, do you think Harper would come back to you? I will expose all of this. Let everyone see the true face of you, the heir of the Tristan group. I couldn't help but raise my voice. Grace, you have to make things so ugly, don't you? Tristan's voice was threatening. Ugly? Humph, Tristan, do you know what ugly is? What did you do when my mother died? Do you remember? I shouted.
You.
Tristan seemed to be hit where it hurt, and he stopped talking. How can you forget? If it weren't for you, my mother wouldn't have died. I told you. She was the only relative I had in this world, and now that she's dead, I have nothing to worry about. Grace, don't regret it. Tristan hung up the phone after saying that. I regret it? The thing I regret most is meeting you. Tristan, I hope we never see each other again. I sent the recording of Harper to several big marketing accounts online. 6. They were very interested in this wealthy family scandal. Soon, there were voices of condemnation against Harper and Tristan online. The stock of Tristan's family group fell by hundreds of millions overnight. The director of Tristan's family hospital was finally pushed out to take the blame, admitting that he was blinded by greed. That's what killed the patient. And at this time, someone exposed a video of Harper's life abroad online. In the video, Harper was holding a mixed-race child in her arms. She was also holding hands with a blonde, blue-eyed man. They looked very intimate. It turned out that Harper had already gotten married abroad and had a child with someone else. I wonder if Tristan will regret it when he knows the truth. But I don't care about that anymore. After I did all this, I went to a strange city and started a new life. I realized that the air without Tristan was so fresh and the sky was so blue. And life can be so beautiful. I found a new job. The salary is not very high, but it is enough for me. Every day, besides going to work, I would go to the hospital to see my grandma. Grandma is the only relative I have in this world. Grandma is the person my mother is closest to, and now that my mother is gone, I have to take care of grandma instead of my mother. I transferred my grandma to the hospital in my city. Fortunately, heaven was not too cruel to me, and my grandma's condition was relatively stable. Sometimes I would take her to the sea, go shopping, and have coffee. She was old, and she didn't remember things very clearly. So, she didn't know that my mother had passed away. And I didn't want her to know. As long as she was happy, I was willing to hide it from her for a lifetime. I disappeared from Tristan's world like a drop of water in the ocean. Later, I heard that Tristan was looking for me like crazy. He went to where I lived, but I had already left. There, I left all the things Tristan gave me. I didn't take anything when I left. He searched everywhere for me, but found nothing.
I didn't care about that.
When I heard about it from a friend, I just smiled. Since I've decided to completely forget about him, no matter what reason he has, I won't forgive him. And I won't see him again. Time flies quickly, and 2 years have passed. In these 2 years, I have met many people and seen many different places. I slowly walked out of the shadow of the past, and I also had a new lover, Shane. Shane is my grandma's attending physician. He is very handsome, the type I like. In these 2 years, thanks to Shane, he has rescued my grandma from danger several times. A year ago, Shane confessed to me. He said he fell in love with me at first sight. Later, he volunteered to be my grandma's attending physician. That's how I got to know him. At that time, I wasn't ready to be with someone else. But Shane said he could wait. Later, his gentleness and consideration made me gradually fall in love with him. A month ago, Shane proposed to me, and tomorrow is our wedding. I thought I would never see Tristan again, but unexpectedly, I was wrong. The day before the wedding, there was an urgent matter at the company that needed me to go back and deal with. After I finished processing, I just came out of the company and saw Tristan.
7.
He looked much more haggard, and his eyes no longer had the light they once had. Seeing me come out, Tristan quickly ran to me, suddenly hugged me, and said hoarsely, "Grace, I finally found you." I was stunned on the spot. I never thought Tristan would come looking for me. I always thought that we had ended 2 years ago. I tried to calm myself down, then pushed him away and said coldly, "Tristan, we've broken up. Why are you looking for me?" Tristan looked at me, his eyes red, and said, "Grace, I was wrong. Come back to me." I laughed. He was wrong. How could he admit he was wrong? At that time, he hurt me so much, and he didn't admit any mistakes. Now, he actually came to me and said he was wrong. It's ridiculous. Is it because Harper's true face has been exposed? So Tristan wants to pursue me again? But so what? I don't love him anymore. I looked at him and said calmly, "Tristan, do you know what love is? Do you know how to love someone?" Tristan looked at me without speaking. I sighed and continued, "Love is not possession. It's not control. It's letting go. You used to have me, and you used to control me, but you didn't cherish it. Now I've let go, I don't love you anymore, and you come to tell me you were wrong. Don't you think it's ridiculous?" Tristan looked at me with regret in his eyes. I will never forget that he was the culprit who caused my mother's death. Those injuries are deeply engraved in my bones, and I will never forget them. So no matter what he says or does now, I will never love him again. Never. Tristan murmured, "Grace, have you hated me all these 2 years?" I smiled. "Hate? Tristan, Are you realizing this problem now? Tristan said painfully, I know, it's all my fault. I know I can't make it up to you. I was deceived by Harper. I didn't know her heart disease was fake. Didn't you sleep with Harper? What are you looking for me for now? Is it Harper, that bitch, who said that? Grace, believe me or not, I never had anything with her. I raised the ring in my hand and said, it doesn't matter to me whether you have a relationship with Harper or not. I'm getting married tomorrow. I don't want you to ruin our life. Tristan panicked. No, I'm not here to ruin your life. I just want to compensate you. Compensation? How can you compensate me with money? Grace, that's not what I mean. I just want to compensate you. It's all my fault. I don't want your compensation. Can your compensation bring my mother back to life? Tristan was stunned and said in a low voice, I'm sorry for my aunt. It's my fault. I couldn't save her. I said coldly, what's the use of saying this now? My mother is dead, and you are the murderer who killed her. Tristan looked sad and murmured, I know, it's useless now. Tristan called out behind me, Grace, can you never forgive me? I stopped and turned to look at him. Tristan looked at me expectantly. I sighed and called softly, Tristan. Tristan's eyes lit up and he looked at me excitedly. I continued, I hope we never see each other again in this life. Otherwise, every time I see you, I want to kill you. Tristan trembled, looking at me sadly. I turned and left. Tristan reached out, as if trying to grab me. But in the end, he didn't reach out. He knew I would never forgive him, and he has completely lost me. From now on, we are people from two different worlds. I went home and saw my fiancé Shane setting the table. Why are you home so late today? I met a friend and came back late. I didn't hide it. Grace, our wedding is tomorrow. Are you nervous? I nodded with a smile. A little nervous. Grace, thinking that in another dozen hours, I can announce to the world that you are my Shane. I can't sleep with excitement. Me too. Grace, meeting you must be my blessing in my previous life. I didn't speak, but kissed Shane's lips. I know I will never meet someone who treats me as well as Shane. So, I will cherish this relationship and live a good life with Shane.